Alison, it is lovely to see you. How are you today?
Oh, top of the world, Maria. It's been so long. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. It's lovely to see all your success. And I want to dive in and find out a little bit more. And I also love the fact that you're sticking true to your colours and you're wearing your lovely pink colour today. Thank you for that. It's
You're
brightened my
very
day.
welcome. Why would you blend in when you can stand out, Maria?
Oh my goodness. See, already you're giving great advice. Why blend in when you can stand out? Yeah, perfect. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So Alison, in the introduction we heard that your expertise is sales, but your main topic is intrapreneurship. Tell me about what the overlap is there and tell me a bit more about intrapreneurship.
So I sort of for years came from the world of sales. So you speak about what you know, don't you? So I know all about sales. And what had happened was I got a call from the Discovery Channel to ask if I could be their offsite keynote speaker. And I was like, oh, that's a really great inquiry, isn't it, Maria? And I thought, I'd love to do that. They said, there's just sort of one caveat that you can't talk about sales because it's the senior leaders. They're coming in from all the departments all over the world, and sales isn't really their topic, but we really want you. I thought, there's a conundrum. So I had to look back at what really the top salespeople in the organizations that I had worked with during that time did. And one of the things that when I did the analytics and I did the research, they all felt as if they were running their own business. And that was one of the things that really got them up in the morning. It got them at the top of the league table. Was the company that they worked for was just the vehicle. So I thought, well, okay, I can talk about that, but what does that look like? And I had been asked to do some work with WH Smiths a few years ago. And I had worked with them on this program regarding how they could increase their productivity, their performance, their service. And I had come up with this theory on what would I do if it was so the whole topic around what would I do if it was what would I do if it was my first day? Would you go in all spick and span and ready to dress to impress and your behavior with a growth mindset? Yes, you would. And then what would I do if it was my relative? So looking at from a customer service perspective, would you take them to the aisle? Would you take them to the till? Would you go the extra mile? Yes, you would. And what would I do if it was my business? So again, this content had been written years before and around sustainability, around upselling, around costs and profits and targets and really knowing the numbers. And I thought, well, that works. That is really what you do when it is your own business. But ultimately, I prove in my second book, Maria, that everything we do is a sale, because if you follow that concept, then ultimately you will perform better. The organization will make more sales. So that's where the two things really tied together. But I had to dig quite deep in how that tied together and what my area of expertise had to do with entrepreneurship. And I think that's where it all sort of fitted together. And also, I'm also known as the entrepreneur's godmother because I work with some really cracking entrepreneurs, the Apprentice winners, the Dragon's Den winners. And I took what they did, they're the top performers in this space. What do they do differently to the startup businesses that fail? And that's where sales was a key component. So it was quite an easy transition because the steps and the motivation is very, very similar to sales.
You know what fascinated me there? The very first thing you said was that you were invited to speak to senior leaders and sales was not their topic. Excuse me, shouldn't sales always be everybody's topic? If there's no sale, there's no business. I just don't understand why everybody isn't focused on the sale. It all starts with a sale.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that because majority of people hate sales. Like it's like a dirty word. I can go in to a room and people say, what is it you do? And if I mention the S word, the sales word, they sort of grimace and take a step back. I could use the F word, Maria, and nobody even like flinches, use the sales word. But I do believe it does come back to the psychology behind it, because ultimately we are wired to not want to take rejection, and sales is just littered with rejection. So I think that as you get through to senior leaders, they kind of know that it is sales, but I think if you put a different wrapper on it, people absorb the content a little bit better. To me, it's the difference between a flake, Cadbury flake, and a twirl bar. The chocolate inside is the same. I've just put an extra wee roll around it, and people think, oh, that's more exciting, that's nicer. And that's where I think, again, they do want to know about sales, but they need it wrapped with the extra wee layer of chocolate so that it's more palatable than talking about that, dirty, sleazy S word.
I can't believe you brought up chocolate. I'm trying to lose a few of my Corona pounds, and now my mouth is watering for chocolate. Anyway, listen, a couple of things there that I want to go back to. You said, if you owned your own business, that entrepreneur mindset, if it was your business, how would you behave? I think that's such great advice, really good advice, because you go into your job completely differently, don't you? If that's the mindset you have.
Oh, completely. And not only that, but building relationships with colleagues. I mean, you look at organizations. I know that when I worked in organizations before I had a job, sometimes there is that, oh, here we go again. Oh, it's all about change. Oh, that manager doesn't know what they're doing. And there's a lot of negativity. Entrepreneurial people don't have that option. They've got to get up, and if they fail or they've had a bad day, it's got to be a new page every day. They've got to build strong relationships, because if they don't sell, they don't get paid. And that's the driving force behind that. Whereas entrepreneurship, they do get paid. They're still getting their salary at the end of the month. And you want everybody to perform at their maximum, and you want them all to build relationships and communicate. But we know that's why we get brought into organizations. We know that that doesn't happen in every department and every organization. There's a lot of siloing, whereas you wouldn't do that if it was your business. You would give it your all, give it your best, and you would communicate with people even if you didn't really like them. So that's, I think, where that fits together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. It's something that I've always done when I have been employed. I have always had that, if you want, treat it like my own business. And it makes it a lot easier, actually, if you ever do make that step to have your own business, because you've always had that mindset anyway. But we're not encouraging people to leave their jobs. Let's just restate that. But one of the things that you do as well is you use DISC, to analyze behaviors. And I'd love to know more about that. I've only just sort of started playing with that recently, and I find it fascinating. How does that help? And why is it so important with regards to sales?
Oh, I adore disc. I literally, it's a real passion for me. Like, I don't just, and coming back to any of the psychology and the profiling, a lot of organizations will go through, oh yeah, I did disc, or I did Myers-Briggs, or I did Belbin years ago, and then they do the thing and they put it in the drawer. The secret is to live it and breathe it every day. And like, I'm sort of notorious for building really good relationships. I mean, touch wood, my reputation is really good. I don't hear many people saying anything that's not good about the stuff that I do. And I think that's because I embody the disc model. And I've got this sort of cross that I use, because some people are task focused, other people are relationship focused, some people are introverts, and other people are extroverts. And we kind of know that in the workplace. And we know that there are people that we don't naturally get on with. But again, by not getting on with people or not selling to people, and this is where it originally came from for me, from sales, because the top performers were like chameleons. They could build relationships with anyone, whereas the people who weren't performing as high, because they discounted, they eliminated people because they didn't like them or didn't get on with them, and that affected their results. And that's the same with communications. It's imperative that you identify, do you have to go faster? Do you have to give more detail? Do you have to be more empathetic? Do you have to be a little bit more upbeat? Because we're not, we tend to stick with people who are like us, but it is building that relationship. And you look at people who are at the peak of their game, everybody has got a really strong relationship with them. And I think I live it and I breathe it, Maria, every single day, and I love it. But I think the reason that I chose DISC over Myers-Briggs or Belbin or any of the other tools, salespeople tend to be not particularly academic. So when you start to use, the I's and the C's and all this kind of stuff, they get confused. And I think I'm neurodiverse, so I'm dyslexic, and it makes it, if I can explain it in simple terms, it doesn't matter what your academic level is, you get it. And I think that's the difference. And So we talk about red, green, blue, and yellow. And I live it and breathe it. I love it.
Fantastic, fantastic. I've played with it and it's quite interesting because it does help you in terms of how you would communicate. I mean, I feel that some people, the top performers, are actually very good at naturally reading people and sort of, creating those emotional connections. But if you need a bit of help, or if you're working with somebody you don't know very well, I think it is a really great tool. Fantastic. So you use that with your clients, do you? And you use that in as part of your sessions?
I use it with everyone. Listen,
Everyone. Oh dear. Have you
every
analysed me?
in there all the time. But if you have a look, and it's interesting what you were saying there about the top performers being able to do that. But a lot of the top performers move into a leadership role, so
That's
they might
true.
be able to do that. But how do they create that common language, that commonality to feed that down into the rest of their team? And like, so we talk about that, but we also talk about Alison Edgar's big balls. So around how you communicate, because if you say to someone in your team, can you drop that off at the shops, or can you finish that project, and you don't explain that I really need this done by 5 o'clock because the knock-on effect is this. So this is today's basketball. So even internally in the organization, we're really slick at what we do because we communicate in basketballs, tennis balls, and ping pong balls. And then we combine that with the behavior colors, and it really, it's funny, Maria, because I'll go into
It's
organizations.
hilarious. What a
I
load of
know.
balls. Wow.
And it's, and I think this is it. We look at the workforce now, and a lot of the workforce are younger, and they need something a wee bit more upbeat, a wee bit more funky. And over lockdown, I was working with a company who had offices. So we had to find a time zone because we had some in Australia, West Coast states, Hong Kong, us in Europe. And it was all like, it was hilarious. But they were all talking Alison Edgar's big balls. And sometimes you don't know how much impact you leave. And when you follow up a month or two later, and you kind of keep your fingers crossed, don't you? You go, how are you getting on? What's changed? They're like, we're all talking Alison Edgar's big balls. So it's the combination between that and the behaviors that I think makes the change.
Love it, love it, love it. So for anybody listening in who's in sales, or maybe they're a speaker wanting to get some bookings, talk me through the key components of the sales process.
So it is a process. I love the fact you say that, Maria, because so many people don't observe it as a process. And to me, it's a little bit like manufacturing, right? So if you're James Dyson and you're making a Dyson in the factory, you've got all the components. And what happens is it'll go through the process and voila, you have a Dyson. And again, sometimes it won't go through quality control. So I think that, you're never going to sell to everyone. So that's where, if you're never going to sell to everyone, you don't have a fear of rejection, because the statistics will be that you are going to be rejected. But it's things like, again, I could talk you through the whole thing. So it's being organized and doing your research. So again, for example, if you wanted to speak for Coca-Cola, who would be the person that would make that booking? What's the role within the company? Where did they work before? How long have they been there? To me, a majority of my speaking work comes from LinkedIn. So 80% comes from people just looking at my profile and me taking action from there. But, you really need to know a lot about what's going on. I mean, Coca-Cola is a great example because they have really championed diversity and inclusion. And that's not my topic, but if I was looking through LinkedIn, I would know who the person to contact would be. The next thing is I call it the win-troduction. So the what's in it for them, because again, I think so many people, and I do this, and I do that, and I do the next thing. Actually, nobody cares what you do. They only really care what the win-troduction is, the fourth W, what's in it for them. So again, having that conversation would be, actually, I've worked with Discovery, I've worked with Sky, I've worked with EasyJet on inclusion and diversity. And what that did was it made it a more equal workforce. The gender pay gap shrunk by 2%. And again, it's all those not that I've done that, I promise that's not my topic, but that's the kind of thing that the booker would be interested in, isn't it? Or the head of HR or whatever it is. Then the next thing is, when you are having that conversation, and this is the gaps that we're taught in sales, but non-sales people have never been taught. So I call it setting the table. So when you have that call, for example, if we were going out for dinner and there was 2 forks on the left, 2 knives on the right, and a fork and a spoon at the top, and we're having the same menu, we both know we're having a 3-course meal, right? When you don't think you're having a buffet, I know we're having a 3-course meal, so do you. So when you start that conversation, really laying the table, what I really want to do is find out what events you've got coming up, who's involved in those events, what kind of topics you're looking at, what's been successful in the past, what bookers have you had, or those great questions. And then at the end of this, what I'll do is there might be something that we can do together, there might be not, and I'll come back with a proposal, or I'll come back with some dates. So everybody knows that you're talking about booking, you're going to be talking about costs. You can see them and look at how much you normally spend on this. So when you bring up a price question, they don't go, oh, what do you want to know price for? Nosy. You've already set the table and everybody knows what the conversation involves. So I think that's the gap. And then brilliant open questions. I mean, so many people don't ask great open questions. And every question I gave you there, who, what, why, where, when, how, who, what, why, where, when, how. And that's exactly the same in leadership. You look at people that have one-to-ones in organizations, it's not about talking at your person, it's about asking, how are you feeling about that? And what can we do to improve it? And if you were to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 meaning you need a lot of help, 5 means you've got this, where do you sit on that scale? So all those questions, and that's why it's exactly the same in leadership as it is in sales, because that part of the process is exactly the same. And then listening is one of the things loads of people don't do. They don't listen, and then actually going for the close. So, and again, that's where from a sales perspective, fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I can put in my diary on the 24th of December, how do you want me to invoice that? So again, you've gone for that assumptive close. How do you want me to invoice it? And it's the same in leadership and change and everything else. It's a transfer of belief. So that's fantastic. So when do you want to get started on that project? It's the same thing. And that's why I'm so passionate, Maria, that sales and leadership and change and performance are all exactly the same thing. It's just the flake with the extra layer of chocolate.
Oh my goodness, that chocolate thing again. But that is brilliant. I mean, you do it so naturally because you've been doing it for years. I'm also, my background's also sales, really. But yes, I've run businesses, but really I've been the salesperson in the business, and I still am, and I love it. And what you've said that resonates so strongly with me is asking great questions. And you're so right. Most inexperienced people will talk and talk and talk and not ask a question, and then listening. Because in doing that, you listen and you can reflect back, you can check your understanding, you can expand. And they'll think they've had a wonderful conversation because somebody's been interested in them,
Yeah, all the time. And I think that's, it's listening. And again, this is where, we do this when we're doing it interactively, but listen and then base the next question on what the person said. So many people are waiting to get in for their time to talk. So if they say, oh, we've used Myers-Briggs in the past. Oh, that's great. Why did you use Myers-Briggs? We did it because of that. And what was the effect on that? Okay. And what would be your likelihood to do something different? So that's just, I'm just basing the next question on the answer. And in some of the interactive sessions, we do like the Guess Who game. So I've got like a wee card and I'll have a famous person and I'll say, right, ask me open questions to determine who it is. And people really struggle with open questions because we're born to ask that. If you think about a 3-year-old child, they're not taught to ask who, what, why, where, when, how. They're not taught that. We're naturally evolved to that. And then when we go to school, obviously the ratio is a lot higher and we have to sit down and be polite. Can I? Will I? Would you like me to? And we get yes or no. And I think that really fosters that rejection, because when we get that no, we then have to deal with that mentally. Whereas actually, if you just keep going in the open question route, you don't get a no, you just get answers and the conversation flows, the relationship becomes stronger. And that's how you sell. People buy people and they buy people like them. That's where I believe those fundamental skills. And that's why I believe that sales and managing teams and entrepreneurship is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I get it. Completely agree with you. Brilliant. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So everything we do is a sale then.
It is, but we can't tell people that because they don't like it. As soon as you use that S word, they all go, "Oh, I hate that."
Ah, dear. So how do we get people to change that mindset, or can we? How do we help them?
Well, we just call it entrepreneurship and then we deliver the same content that you would
Okay,
expect.
we just change the name. We change it. It's the chocolate again, right?
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
I do believe it. And not only, because if you look at like organizations, it's not only at a senior leadership level, they can take it because a lot of them have been around the block a bit, but it's that younger workforce that go, oh, I'm not coming to that. Sales, I don't do sales. I'm not in sales. They haven't appreciated the fact that everything is a sale. So if you were to bring somebody in to talk about sales, then this is, sometimes I'll walk away from work, Maria, because it's like mindset. You can't change someone's mindset. You can't say you're really bad at sales, you need a course. You've got to actually sell the concept that they're going to learn new skills that are life skills that will really help them to smash it, or whatever it is. And they have to want to come, they have to want to be in that room, otherwise they won't get that takeaways and they won't be able to action them. So it's just even changing that mindset that we don't have to say it's sales as long as we get people on board, because the messaging is actually pretty much the same to get the results at the back end.
Love it, love it. So you mentioned Smash It. I've mentioned it in the introduction, your new book, Smash It, The Art of Getting What You Want. I mean, the title literally has me hooked. I've got to go and buy a copy, and I will do that straight after this video. Tell me what I can learn from the Smash It book and what you teach in that.
Well, it's really interesting because I didn't ever want to write another book. I did that, I ticked the box. I've done that. That's what you need for credibility as an ebook. But what was bizarre, people were reading the first one, Secrets of Successful Sales, and they were coming back to me saying, Alison, I'm getting on so much better with my partner or my children. Alison, I just bought a house and I managed to save so much money on it. Or I've sold my car and I got more money on it. Or I got a promotion at work. And I'm thinking, why are you reading that book? You're not meant to be reading that book. That book's not for you. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to have to write another book for the people who do not think they're in sales or in business. And I did a TEDx. So my TEDx is called The Art of Getting What You Want. And I was looking at, again, it all came about in lockdown. I wasn't really planning on writing another book, but lockdown came, I had a bit of time. So I was speaking to a publisher, and she said, no, you need a name, something, The Art of Getting What You Want. You can't just call it The Art of Getting What You Want. And I'm like, okay. So I played with a few names around, and then I do say Smash It quite a lot. So I thought that sounds good. So I took the name Smash It, and then I've trademarked it. So I'm now like the queen of Smash It. And every time I hear somebody saying Smash It, I'm going, send you an invoice for using my trademark. I don't know, I'm joking, but that's where it came about. But what I did, which I did differently in the second book to the first, was I really broke it into two sections. And how do you get what you want? So there'll be things, if you want to lose weight, if you want to stop drinking, if you want to start a business, that's not anything external to you. That's a me thing. That's all happens between your ears. That's your mindset. And what we did was we split the book into two parts, the me thing and the we thing. Because if you want to get married, or if you want a job promotion, or if you want, you want to have babies, whatever it is, there's more than you that's involved in that. There's other people. So I think when you split it into two, when you set your goals and have your vision, and that's again in Smash It, I've gone more in depth into the psychology behind goal setting, vision boards. I've created an app, because one of the things that, again, I didn't, oh, look at your wee face, I guess I created an app.
Excited. I love apps.
I'm a woman in tech now, because I think, yourself, if you're out and about, so say you're out walking the dog and you're thinking about what is my goal over the next 12 months, and goals don't come to us in a linear fashion. They can happen anywhere. So you might be walking the dogs down the Thames, for example, and you think, I really want to do something in the fit, and I want to be fitter. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then you see somebody on rollerblades, right? And you think, oh, do you know, see, when I was 12, I was the queen of rollerblading. I'm going to take a photo on my app, and I'm going to put that in my vision board. And that again, because the goals don't come to you when you're walking around with a book. So that's where I thought it was really important to move into the tech space to back that up, because ultimately, Maria, you know, I do smash it all the time and I get what I
I
want.
know.
So
I've been following you.
yeah, that's why I wrote the book. How can I teach people to do that? So that's where we split that into the parts. And then I created the Smash It methodology. So again, if you look quite closely, Marie, it's not dissimilar to the sales process. You know, just saying I took some parts out of it, but it's quite a similar process, but it helps you get back on track because again, the wee voice in our head saying, nah, you don't need to go out, you don't need that chocolate, you know, you'll just have that chocolate, Maria, have that chocolate. And you have to fight with your inner self to not have, again, like literally, you know what's going to happen after this podcast, you'll be running to the shops for the chocolate. But that kind of thing is all internal. So one of the things I think people, I'm quite notorious for making things easy. When I explain it, they go, oh yeah, I really get that. Because I don't use big words. I just look at the logic behind it. And then the wee thing is, again, do you want somebody at work to do what they're told and they're not doing it? Do you want your partner to, you know, make sure he makes dinner on a Friday night? How do you make that happen? And we use the same methodology, but for the wee thing as well. So the methodology is the same, but we just split it into the two sections. So yeah, and then at the end, shh, don't tell Andy. We prove that everything we do is a sale.
We won't tell anyone. So I love that, the me thing and the we thing. And also, I need to know, where do I get this app?
It's on the App Store, so it's the Google Play or the App Store, and you have to put in Smash It and then Alison Edgar because there's like a few games with cars and stuff like that. So if you put in Smash It, Alison Edgar, it's
I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab that. Brilliant. Love that.
And it's got all the videos. So again, another thing that when people do try and change, it's hard to change on your own because you're arguing with your head. Whereas if you watch the videos, I've got like every section's got a wee video and I'll go, right, you should try this, write in this. So you've got me in your pocket to support you with your goals.
I've got Alison in my pocket. Wonderful. Alison, I cannot thank you enough. I've got a list of notes here. I'm going to grab the book and I'm going to grab the app. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I loved it. Literally any time with you, Maria, is just amazing. We have to do it more often.
We must, absolutely, with chocolate. So anyway, thank you very much, Alison. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Speaking Business podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends, share it, grab a copy of Smash It the book and Smash It the app. And until next time, I've been Maria Franzoni. Bye-bye for now.